Perfect. My name is Dr. Yair Kornblut, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Maygia. And with us on the call is my co-founder, Professor Matthew Suss. 2 billion people around the world do not have adequate access to clean water. 1 billion people do not have adequate access to electricity. These two problems meet at an extremely important junction because it takes loads and loads of electricity to clean water, which means high costs and high carbon emissions at the same time. To look at this problem a little deeper, if you look at a factory that we actually have running in Israel today that provides desalinated water, for example, to 1 million homes every year, just the electricity alone costs $70 million per year. And the carbon emissions associated with this type of operation would be equivalent to 10,000 Swedes living their daily lives for a year. I mentioned Swedes because actually I'm currently sitting in Sweden. But yes, we are an Israeli company, and Matt's over in the US right now. I'm in Sweden, so we're like an electron. We're everywhere. and at Maygia, we want to address this problem of carbon emissions associated with clean water, of the electricity costs, by providing hydrogen-powered water and electricity at the same time to address both of these issues. In our solution, we say, let's stop using electricity, but actually instead, you input into your water treatment device, our box, dirty water and hydrogen, no electricity. And what you get out is your clean water and electricity at the same time. Our solution is flexible. You can be turning seawater into drinking water or cleaning factory wastewater and helping municipalities, because we can actually clean any type of charged pollutant from the water. And the solution is scalable. You could be working with small villages or large factories. And actually, there's already a prototype running in Matthew's lab, and it can handle about 10 liters a day. And our next goal for milestone-wise is to be able to do 1,000 liters a day. As for our team, as I mentioned, my co-founder was on the call, Professor Matthew Suss. He has a big laboratory over at the Technion, and he's currently stationed at Harvard for the year. And he's a world-renowned expert in water and energy. As for myself, I'm a serial entrepreneur who's worked in a bunch of different companies around the world. And as for our mentors and advisors, I'm very happy to say that we have an amazing team. So, as for where Matthew and I have worked, we've worked at institutions ranging from Georgia Tech, MIT, Harvard, Stanford, and a bunch of different companies, as I mentioned, around the world. And we're very fortunate to have with us, advising us and acting as mentors, 2 CEOs from 2 hardware companies from Israel and Luxembourg. We have a mentor based in the US working as a VC at EQT. And actually, our first advisory board member is the CEO of a battery unicorn company in Israel. Prospective traction, we've already raised over $120,000. Our first investor is Techstars, and we've received 2 support letters and an LOI from energy company, from a water company, from a company doing water projects in Africa. And we have already seen acquisition interest from a publicly traded company. We have a pilot partner in place, and we're in discussions with very interesting players from the steel and ammonia sectors. Our next steps are to fundraise, to grow our team, and so we can build our pilot and work with our partners, and then work in large utilities. And then we can actually expand downwards to remote areas like villages and even space exploration, where you have hydrogen, the need to treat water, and the need to produce electricity. So it's a very interesting application for technology, including, so you have underwater and
1 minute warning,
and also even in space applications. So Maygia is a wonderful, unique opportunity to do good in the world while doing great business. We could save industry billions of dollars while saving 100 million tons of carbon emissions over a decade and addressing global water safety issues at the same time. So please connect with us and join us on our mission to change the world.
I'll pull in our other investor panelists. While I do, what's behind the name?
Oh, this is a combination of Hebrew and Greek. May is a sort of a descriptor of water in Hebrew, and Gia is energy, stems from energy in Greek. So it's energy water.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you want to take things away, Alan, this time?
Sure. Thanks for the presentation. Really interesting concept, but I'll probably say that rather than thinking about the later stage business, because I'd like to understand a little bit about that pathway. You're in the lab at 10 liters a day, and I guess you've got some data and some energy efficiencies coming at that. What does the scale up of engineering look like for you guys, and timeline?
Well, we're currently at, you could say that we're at TRL 4/5. If you're, there's a prototype running that can handle seawater down to almost drinking water. The next steps are to spend the next 18 to 24 months focusing on scale up, as well as working with partners to see how well we can treat their water and what their interests are with respect to piloting their initial synthetic water or their actual wastewater, to see how our technology handles it. And then third year, you'd be doing most likely pilots within their actual walls, and getting already paid pilots by mid-second year, and then third or perhaps third year. And early commitment sales could commence as early as year 4. That would be a stretch goal, I would say, but something that could be accomplished. So with respect to engineering, there's a paper actually published from Matt's lab talking about the scale-up process and how they went from a few drops to over 10 liters a day. So you have aspects of both materials and system type engineering that takes place, but the path is pretty straightforward in the sense that it takes principles of technologies already existing out there, like electrodialysis or capacitive deionization and fuel cells, but it essentially puts it in one single device. So the principles are fairly well understood. Now you're talking about engineering the scale-up process, but at the same time optimizing materials as well.
I understand the concept of taking existing technologies and putting them together, but the scale up from 10 liters to the kind of scale that you're talking about, a desalination plants or equivalent to 70 million euro installations in Israel, is a world of pain ahead of you. Is that type of experience in the team, or is the team, like, you've got a lot of startup experience, Matthew's obviously in the lab in this specialty. Do you have that engineering scale up or that manufacturing capability within the team?
We have someone in the queue, very promising potential hire that has scale up experience in this very specific sector. But we also have an advisor on our board who went from founding a battery startup, so electrochemical oriented startup, going from tiny cells and now growing into a massive, I think they've raised.
Yeah, what's happened with Doron? I had him on an old podcast years ago. I just saw the name. It's like a flash from the past.
Yeah, I just spoke with him today. They're doing great, which is, it's great to have somebody like that with us, because as you mentioned, it's no easy task to take something from a laboratory into the market, but we surround ourselves with people who have that kind of experience. And I know I'm, let's say, 0 degree removed from multiple characters like that. So we have a lot of knowledge support in that sector.
And a quick question about the hydrogen part. How are you sourcing the hydrogen?
Oh, so we are not producers of hydrogen. We are users of hydrogen. So, of course, in the long-term vision, we could be a system integrator where we provide your electrolysis or whatever produces the hydrogen in your setting when we provide you with a solution that you buy from us. But starting out, the current strategy is to work with pre-existing users of hydrogen. So there are a few sectors in the world that use 90% of the world's hydrogen. And those are very appealing sectors for us that would want to reduce costs and would want to reduce carbon emissions, like ammonia, methanol, steel. Those sectors all use a lot of cheap hydrogen and need to clean a lot of water. So they already have the hydrogen infrastructure. So it seems very likely that we will start with them as our partners, because they already have all the infrastructure related to hydrogen in their facilities.
That makes a lot of sense. And for the facilities that you all are creating, are you going to have sort of capital partners or use project finance to be able to build that out?
Starting out, we're raising and moving into a laboratory, but of course, we're talking to very big players from industry who show a lot of interest in working with us. And there's the potential of relying on their pre-existing infrastructure to do at least some element of the manufacturing. So it could be a hybridization of, you have one source that does some kind of milling or machining, whatever you want to call it. And then you work with this new partner that we work with that maybe has experience of fuel cells, for example, that they could be building another side of it or assembling. So the fact is, it's very early days to be deciding on that path, but we're having good discussions with industry that will finally funnel us into the path as we get closer and closer to that time.
Got it. And do you foresee any regulatory barriers for you all's process?
Well, that's why I think it's better to start with industry as well, because it's not, doesn't have to be as tightly controlled as water for drinking. There's different regulations for industry as there would be for, something that's going to treatment post your factory versus something that's going right into someone's house for drinking. So I think starting out, it won't be such a challenge. Maybe later on, when we try to work with desalination for drinking purpose, it'll be harder, but I don't foresee, you analyze the water pre and post and you have pretty straightforward results. So I think it should be a clear path.
Thank you.
How much non-dilutive funding do you have from the Israeli government and the Innovation Authority?
We're in discussions with, those kind of characters that help you apply for grants, both in the EU as well as in Israel. In Israel, a lot of the IIA money requires complementary funds. So I think once we secure some amount of these funds, then we can more aggressively work towards complementing it with the grants, both in Israel and in the EU.
Okay, we've had the opposite experience where generally the companies already have that lined up, and then the IIA is just ready to sign the check once the money comes from the other players.
I hear contradictory stories about whether or not you should secure the money first or get the IIA signed first. So good to hear that from you.
It's going to be similar in most countries. The institutional body isn't going to turn down private match funding. So if you get that first, things are going to accelerate.
But it's easier to get the first if you've got the match already there. But either neither here nor there. What's your go-to-market plan? So you've got a great technology, you've got a great product, you've got some experience, but how do you get this in the hands of folks? How do you get this into setting?
Right now, because of the attention that the hydrogen and water sectors are getting, it's been fairly straightforward to approach high-level folks in industry. Like I was fortunate, let's say I connected with a CEO of a steel company the other day, and he immediately forwards me to a VP. So I think that because of the trend, it's a lot easier to get your foot in the door with respect to this piloting step. But later, of course, that's not a scaled way of doing it. So we start off with that. We start doing pilots. We prove that we are useful to these industries. And at the same time, as we get in more fundraising done, we can grow the sales team. We'll be doing a more classic way of reaching out and growing the sales, because it's more of a hardware, old style type of sales process.
What kind of IP strategy are you looking at or have?
Well, what's great about this tech is that there are very few people in the world who have worked with this and have the capacity to do this kind of work. So Matthew is really great in the sense that he does both energy storage as well as water treatment research, and in his laboratory they do both empirical and theoretical. So they have a really comprehensive skill set that puts us apart from most of the world. And so there's a lot of open space for us to be patenting right now very aggressively once the funds are in. And then, of course, we'll be looking at partnerships to do potential development together. There's a lot of those EU grants that we were talking about require partnering with other companies. So there's room for doing some joint development. But in the beginning, we plan on patenting pretty aggressively. But Matthew already comes with a set of built-in know-how that is very rare to find. So when you talk about intellectual property, I mean, it includes know-how as well as patenting, right?
Yeah, of course. Thanks.
What's your biggest worry on the business, Matt?
Matt?
Was that for me on the business? I'm more of the tech side, so I'm always thinking about the engineering challenges. But yeah, on the business side, I mean, the key thing, at least from my perspective is working with the customers here, identified, understanding their problems in water, and then showing that we can treat them. I mean, that would be the biggest challenge for the business and the tech. But showing that we can address their waters at a smaller scale is a great way to build those relationships and create those customers. And I think we can do that. I mean, my lab focuses on all sorts of water problems. We've done a lot of stuff in the water space. So all these applications are unique. They all have their different types of water, and what they care about is different. But that's our challenge. That'll be our challenge going forward.
And what about getting up to commercial scale? So TRL 8.9 and ready to roll.
Yeah, I think that's how it starts. If you work with these customers and show you can address their waters, I've had experience in that process before with different industries, and they get pretty excited once you show that you can do the separation that they want. And so that will be the initial stage to go from where we are TRL 4 or 5 and a small scale device to really getting to the kind of 1,000 liter per day device or around there that we can integrate into their facilities. So the scale that would start to be interesting to them. That would be kind of the stepping stone approach. So to get to commercial scales of very large, it would be really stepping stone of showing we can treat their waters, we can address their problems, embedding into their facility with pilot devices. And then from there, having partners to help us really do that scale up. But with hopefully a lot of interested parties in different industries to help support that goal.
Are there I know you mentioned industrial partners, but are there any particular industries that you all are zoning in on?
Yes. So as I mentioned, there are 4 sectors in this world, in our planet, that use 90% of the world's hydrogen, and 3 of them are extremely appealing. So steel, ammonia, aka fertilizers, and methanol. They use a very large fraction of the world's hydrogen, and they need to clean a lot of water in both regards of post-process water and also pre-boiler water, most likely. And also they have to do desalination. So there are different solutions that we can offer them essentially, because they need different types of water treatment.